Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Board of NHS England in London. To the meeting we welcome members of the public who have joined us here and also those who are watching the meeting on our live stream. We're committed to the openness and transparency of the conduct of our business, especially the formal decision making that will be taking place this morning. But I should emphasise, as I always do, that it's a meeting in public, not a public meeting, but that also that the board does a great deal of its work, not in formal meetings such as this, but in its thinking around strategy and a development session. So, for example, yesterday afternoon, we spent time in a development session on the theme of personalised medicine, and in particular the Whole Genomes Project, which is being run by Genomics England Limited in partnership with us, and trying to understand what would be the implications for the NHS over future years of moving to a model which is more closely focused on personalisation of medicine. We will this afternoon be moving into private session, and the agenda for this afternoon will include a scrutiny of the draft annual report and accounts, which we have to take in private session because they do not become public until they're laid before Parliament, and we'll also be doing a preliminary evaluation of our performance against the mandate, which again will require full report in due course. So there's a clear distinction between the public business and the private business of the board. Let me then report that there is this morning no fire alarm scheduled, so that if the alarm should sound, our staff will escort everybody to a place of safety off the premises. Next issue is to report apologies. We have apologies for this morning only from Wendy Becker, who has an unfortunate clash with other board obligations. But she was with us yesterday for the development session. I want to just touch upon two or three preliminary matters this morning. First of all, the issue of declarations of interest. I'm keen to introduce a custom and habit on the board that at each of the meetings we will table a written statement of the interests held by members of the Board of NHS England. And this is, I think, as part of a general practice that we would wish to employ in order to raise the consciousness across the whole of the health sector about the importance of identifying interests, identifying potential conflicts of interest, and managing those in the way in which business is conducted. That is the theme of the Task and Finish group that I've been asked to chair, which will be looking at this issue across the whole of the NHS. We will be coming today to look at conflicts of interest in relation to CCGs, and there will be a report on that specific aspect of the business. So may I pause at this stage and ask whether any member of the board has any interest which is in potential conflict with anything on the agenda today?
No conflict, Chair, but just for the record, I should add that I'm a board member of Co-op Group, which doesn't appear on here, so...
Yes, we'll add that to the list.
Chair, I should also express,
since it was specifically discussed in the Daily Telegraph that in the case of the Archbishop, North Gene, which I help run, is actually part of Quantum DX Group. It's not named in my list of interests. It's a paternity testing company.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll take note of that. Thank you very much. I've got a couple of issues to raise in relation to the executive team. The first is to report that when Simon Stevens joined us as Chief Executive a little over 2 years ago, it was against a contract which provided, as you would expect, for a number of issues. But two of them in particular I need to mention this morning. The first was the question of salary, and the second was the question of bonus. On the question of salary, you may recall that on his appointment, Simon voluntarily took a percentage reduction in his salary. And at each of his performance reviews thereafter, in each succeeding year, I have raised with him that question as to whether he would now wish to revert to the salary for which we have made provision. And I have to report formally this morning that he has maintained his original position and will take a £20,000 reduction. I can keep bidding this up.
That's right. Voluntary endeavour, really.
Yes,
It's just a joy and a pleasure.
Yes. Well, we know all of that, but he will take a £20,000 reduction on his salary, and as you would expect, his answer to me on the question of bonus was that he would not wish to be considered for a bonus, so I wish that to be recorded formally, and our thanks to Simon accordingly. Secondly, in relation to the executive team, I wish to report that this will be the last meeting of Richard Barker, who has been standing in to the position that was vacated by Barbara Haken. But at the end of this month, we will be joined by Matthew Swindells. And I would just like, on behalf of the board, Richard, to thank you for what you've done. It's been an extraordinary job in a very complex and turbulent time. And we've been grateful to you for your wise counsel and advice. Thank you very much. A couple of governance issues. First, to report to the board and to seek the board's endorsement of the appointment to the Audit and Risk Assurance Committee of Jerry Murphy, who is currently chairman of the Audit Committee of the Department of Health, has been attending our Audit and Risk Assurance Committee as an observer and participant. And I know, David, you're keen, as am I, to formalise that relationship and to appoint him formally to the committee. I am assuming that that is agreed around the table. Thank you. Also to report that Wendy Becker, who has been recently appointed as one of our non-executives, will join ARAC, and she will also join the Investment Committee. I want also, in connection with this, to report the appointment of Noel Gordon to be the new chair of NHS Digital, and extend to him, I think, our congratulations on taking on such an extraordinarily important role. To look forward to ever closer working relationships with NHS Digital, formerly HSCIC, and to advise also that Noel was, as a consequence, come off the Investment Committee, but has agreed to remain on ARAC and on the commissioning, and to chair specialised commissioning and remain on the commissioning committee. I would also like publicly to pay tribute to Kingsley Manning, who has now stood down and finished his term as the chair of HSCIC, and to say how much we're looking forward to working with NHS Digital as it now is in its new guise. Finally, on governance matters, to let everybody be aware that we will be holding our AGM on the 25th of October. The board will be involved in a time-out activity through the rest of that day, but in the evening, please could you hold the date, as we say, for our AGM. Finally, a couple of items of activity. First, to advise the board that I have established a new informal advisory council of chairs of CCGs to help me understand what is happening in their activities. We held our first meeting on the 29th of April. It was a very open discussion and for me immensely rewarding. We will have another meeting in October, and I'm happy to invite any non-executive member of the board who would wish to join me on that occasion to do so. We'll get that into people's diaries. And then finally, to let the board know that on the 6th of June I will be leading a UKTI stroke Healthcare UK trade mission to India on the theme of health. And that is partly in my capacity as chair of this board, but also partly in my capacity as a UK business ambassador. But it's, I think, a very interesting time for health-related industry within the UK to be engaging with India and vice versa. So that, I think, brings me to the end of my preliminary matters. And if there are no observations or comments on the Chairman's report, may I move then to the minutes of the previous meeting. I'm assuming that everybody's read them and that you're happy to endorse them. I have no matters arising, and I don't see any indication of others with matters arising.